The death spiral of the dollar vertical bar. How Trump's trade war backfired spectacularly. Brace yourselves, because what we're witnessing isn't just market turbulence, it's the beginning of an economic earthquake. Once again, the so-called master dealmaker in the White House has failed to seal the deal. The U.S. trade war is crumbling. And this time, it's not just policy missteps. We are talking about a full-blown meltdown. The U.S. financial markets are in free fall. Wall Street is unraveling, the bond market imploding, the dollar plunging, and the stock market yesterday was a bloodbath. The S&P 500 alone wiped out over $2.5 trillion in value since Trump's infamous 90-day pause. That's not just a correction, it's a crisis. Everything, and I mean, hinges on a trade deal. But the White House? They're fumbling the ball at every turn. Even Japan, a loyal ally, is backing away. They're done bowing to Washington's demands. And China? They're not just holding their ground, they're... No phone calls, no diplomacy, just silence and retaliation. And as the flames rise, Trump is dumping gasoline on the fire. In a move that defies logic, he's threatening to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell again. That's right. In the middle of a global economic tug-of-war, Trump is picking a fight with the one man who controls America's monetary lifeline. A move like this doesn't scream strength, it screams. Now he's demanding preemptive rate cuts, emergency measures. Trump insists there's no inflation, that costs are falling, and that it's time for the Fed to slam rates down. This isn't economic policy, it's fantasy, it's dangerous, and it's dismantling what little confidence remains in the U.S. system. Let's be real. If Powell caves and cuts rates to satisfy Trump's demands, the U.S. Treasury market could collapse. The dollar would go into a tailspin, and global trust in America's economic stability would be obliterated. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse, China makes its move. Beijing has thrown down the gauntlet. They're warning the world. If you side with the U.S., prepare for retaliation. This is no longer a trade negotiation, it's economic warfare. But China isn't stopping there. They've started rewriting the rules of global trade, and their message is clear. Ditch the dollar. Embrace the yuan. China's central bank has ordered all state-owned enterprises to prioritize the yuan in their overseas deals. That's not just a symbolic gesture, that's a strategic shift of tectonic proportions. In fact, in under 15 years, the use of the yuan in cross-border payments has exploded from virtually zero to over 53% in 2023. The US dollar, once dominant at 83%, has plunged to around 43%, and likely even lower today. This isn't just a currency shuffle, it's a calculated strike against the heart of American power, the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency. Trump says he wants to preserve the dollar's dominance, but every policy decision he makes is cutting off demand at the source. From trade wars to tariff hikes to rate cut demands, he's hacking away at the very foundation of U.S. economic credibility. Even legendary investor Peter Schiff weighed in, correctly pointing out that the idea of a stronger dollar offsetting tariff costs was nothing but a myth. The collapsing dollar is now making everything worse, not better, and it's only going to accelerate the shift away from America. China knows this, and they're capitalizing on it. They're the largest trading partner for more than 120 countries: Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Latin America, you name it, they're in. China's total trade volume? $6.1 trillion, the U.S. falling behind at $5.3 trillion, and thanks to Trump's chaotic trade war, that gap is only going to grow wider. And here's the kicker. China's push to de-dollarize isn't slowing down, it's speeding up. Beijing is instructing state-owned companies to completely remove the dollar from their overseas operations. They're not just talking about it, they're doing it. Their plan? Replace SWIFT with CIPs, a cross-border payment system built to be sanction-proof and blockchain integrated. This is about control, independence, and most of all, power. In just the first quarter of this year, China posted a shocking 5.4% GDP growth, with 40% of that growth coming from exports. In the midst of a trade war, the world is still buying more Chinese goods than ever before. Why? Because they're cheaper, more reliable, and in many cases the only option left. And guess what currency those transactions are being settled in? Not the dollar. If the United States economy plunges into a recession and the signs are blinking red, import volumes will crash and global exporters will flock to whoever's still growing, China. Let's not sugarcoat it, the markets are already screaming the truth. United States assets are collapsing, foreign confidence is evaporating. The real Trump trade today is to sell America. And the dollar, it's entering a death spiral. Gold has shattered the $3,400 mark, a glowing red flare that screams, we no longer trust the system. Central banks around the world are dumping U.S. bonds and hoarding gold. Export invoicing in dollars is falling, currency reserves are diversifying. De-dollarization is not a theory, it's a global movement. And it's Washington that's fueling it. The U.S. government has become the architect of its own decline. While Beijing plays chess, Washington is flipping the board over in frustration. Trump's chaotic trade tactics, his war with the Fed, his obsession with a weaker dollar, all of it is pushing the U.S. economy toward the brink. And here's the cruel irony. The more Washington fights to maintain control, the faster it loses it. When you chase rate cuts during a trade war, when you threaten your own central bank, when your exports and imports are drying up, you don't look strong, you look desperate. So what happens next? If a recession hits, U.S. consumers will slam the brakes, imports will crater, exporters will find new partners, and China, armed with an expanding trade empire and a global UN strategy, will take center stage. Already forward indicators are flashing crimson. General business outlook, down 20%, new orders, down 22%, shipments, collapsed by 28%. That's not just a slowdown, that's an unraveling. And through it all, Trump's White House keeps promising 90 deals in 90 days. But can you really make sound decisions in such chaos? Can real diplomacy happen on a deadline imposed by political panic? The truth is, China's de-dollarization push is just the icing on the cake. The real rot lies within, inside the United States financial and political systems themselves. Reserve currency, eroding bond markets, imploding, confidence vanishing. Trump may want a weaker dollar, but if it collapses too far too fast, he'll unleash a full-blown depression, not just a recession. So here's the question. Is China truly about to de-dollarize the world? And will the United States survive its own economic self-sabotage? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and share this video if you want more uncensored breakdowns of the global economy. Stay informed, stay alert, and most of all, stay safe.